How's it going, YouTube? Coming today with another video, and today, guys, what the brain is my meta report and the recent YCS. And today we're going to be talking a lot about the different potential hits on the ban list. We'll talk a lot about the different decks that were in the top 32, and we'll also talk about different tier 2 options that you can pick up that are pretty inexpensive but really strong right now. So if you haven't already checked out my sponsors over at Imperium Duelist and Dragon Shield, definitely go ahead and check them out down in the description below. Without further ado, let's hop right on into the video. So the first thing that I want to talk about today is going to be those potential banless hits. So I've never thought that we'd actually see a card everyone hated more than Max C, but Mystic Mine is definitely making a name for itself in this game. And I think that it's really funny because it's one of those cards like Vanity's Emptiness that wasn't really that good right off the bat, but later on, really insane. And this is something where a lot of people want to see this card get banned. Maybe we'll see this get banned. Maybe we'll just see Demise of the Land get banned. Who knows? But this is definitely going to be one of the highest contention cards right now to get banned. The next one I want to talk about, though, is going to be Super Poly. So this card is actually really insane. Super Poly is one of those cards that not only is it just insane against Sprite, it's also just really good as a utility card inside a tier. And that's really a problem because tier is already so strong, and having this on top of everything else is really crazy. And this is a card that I could definitely see getting hit very fast, especially because Garura is just such a crazy card right now, and it's really running rampant throughout the entire game. It's really hard to find a deck list without Super Poly Garura. So this is a card that could definitely see either get hit to 1 or just get banned. The next two here being Call by the Grave and Snow. Call by the Grave is really insane. This is a card very good offensively and defensively, and a lot of those rogue decks that really depend on that one hand trap to be able to at least try to stop your opponent, if it gets called by it can be pretty detrimental to that deck, and that's a reason why I could really see Call by get hit. I really want to see this card either at 3 or 0, so either or I'd be happy with, but I definitely just want to see it get banned. This card is really obnoxious, and I just really want to see it go. The last one here, though, being Snow. If you played against a deck using Snow, you know how crazy this card is to deal with, especially the fact that you can chain it multiple times from the graveyard if you have like Crow and Call by. So this is a card that definitely just gotta go. In most combo decks, they can go ahead and Snow, Book of Moon your monster, IP make Unicorn, then bring back Snow and Book of Moon another monster. Pretty insane whenever you're trying to play against this. So this is a card that could definitely see get hit again because it's already on the ban list and it's probably going to go back there very quickly. So the next thing I want to talk about today, though, is going to be what are the popular hand traps right now. So Crow and Bell are both very strong right now, and we've seen these in main decks for a while, but it's still something where we're seeing Crow a lot more. But Bell is still really cool in the main deck and decks like Tier because you can go ahead and stop Crow because Crow is a menace in that matchup. But both these cards are very good against decks like Tier and Mathmech, but they're also just very good generically. We're going to be seeing the Tier deck be very good for a while, especially because we're seeing the new cards coming out in November. So these cards are going to see a lot of play over the next couple months, and I'm very excited to see what the format turns into. But both these cards are very strong at the moment. I definitely recommend at least maining Crow and siding Bell because they'll make these matchups a lot easier for you. Now let's talk about some tier 2 decks here. I really like each and every one of these. I think that they're all really strong right now and they're fairly inexpensive but highly recommended to pick up. Mathmech is really cool because Circular alone equals Wicked plus IP and Superfactorial. Then you play a ton of hand traps in this deck, so you could have a few in hand as well on top of the board that you already have. So Wicked protects the board and then it gets you additional search. Then you also have the Superfactorial, which turns into a Trish-esque effect and an Omni negation, and then you still have IP, which is insane. The end board is really nice just off of one card. I like it a lot. Also, you have decks like Marincess that can utilize Mystic Mine really well and be able to combo underneath Mystic Mine as just a one-card combo. I think that's really cool, and the resource game and the grind game in this deck is actually just insane. And then lastly, you have Rika. Rika is really cool and probably the most expensive out of the three, but it's going to be that more combo-esque deck, and you're going to be looking at a lot more different lines of play, and it also just has a lot more that it can play through, a lot more one-card starters. I like this deck a lot as well, so it's just really picking whichever deck you want to play and trying it out a lot online, but each of these are going to be very solid contenders moving forward, especially after a ban list. We're not going to see a hit to any of these decks, so they're all very safe pickups right now, and if you don't really know what you want to play, or you're kind of bored of the format, maybe you give one of these a shot, because they're all really fun to play, and I think they're all really strong. But moving forward off of these, though, I want to talk about the different decks that have a rise in popularity at the moment. So the first one here is going to be the Adagnister Mathmech deck. It's going to be very combo-centric, a lot going on in this deck, especially after you go ahead and combo with all of your Mathmech cards. Then you can go ahead and activate things like your AI land, then combo into your Adagnister cards. I think that's really cool, too, because it allows you to play more under Nibiru, especially because, like, a lot of different times when you're playing most Cyberus decks, you're worried about Nibiru, because a lot of the Cyberus decks don't really have any way to put up an an Omni negation outside of like Math.Mech. So this is going to be a game changer here if you can go ahead and start with the L inversion with the diameter as material, and then go ahead and combo freely, which I think is really cool as well. It gives you a lot of options in the deck. You also have the Runic Sprite deck. This deck is really cool. It gives you one of those options where if you are under things like Dark Ruler, you have a lot of cards from your hand that you can go ahead and utilize to make sure that your opponent cannot really establish a board. And then also you have cards like the Fountain that can give you draws, and it's all protected by things like Totally Awesome. So I could definitely see this being played moving forward. Now, as for the last deck here, I have Sprite Tier Danger. This deck is very cool, and it utilizes cards like Curious and Griffin, which is really nice because you can utilize your sideboard very quickly, especially if you're dumping cards like Eradicator or Deck Devi to go ahead and reset with Griffin. Or if you have Baron on the board, you can go ahead and dump Scythe and Reborn it in the standby phase. This deck is very combo centric, and it could definitely be a threat to the format. I'm interested to see how the ban list will go ahead and affect all these different supplementary engines that we're using, because they're just so good in the amount of combo that you see in these different decks, especially the Sprite Tier Danger deck that can really just pump out a board like it's no one's business. This deck is really crazy, and I'm definitely interested to see all the different variants that we see moving forward. So as for the best engines that we have right now, we have the Brave engine and the p.u.n.k engine. We could definitely see E-Telly going to 1, but we have to see if that will happen. But this engine is still really strong, being utilized in both Tier and the Sprite deck. Then we still have the Enchantress engine being utilized in Sprite, because you can go Swap Frog, pitch Enchantress, use your Swap Frog engine, and then go into your Brave engine, which is pretty crazy. It's a really nice interaction. Then you have that Omni negation as well. So this is something that we're going to see for a long time. Also, Enchantress is like $20 or below 20 right now, so definitely go ahead and pick some up. It might get hit in the ban list to 1 or 2, but I don't think that they're going to hit right though. So eventually it'll either be like 2 Enchantress and 2 right, or it's going to be 1 Enchantress and 3 right. I don't think that they're going to go ahead and like destroy the engine, so I definitely think that it'd be a fine pickup. Maybe don't pick up like 3 and 3, but it's definitely going to be something that we'll see utilized for the time being, and even more so after the ban list. These engines are going to be very strong moving forward. So reviewing the top 32 of the YCS, we definitely saw quite the different list of decks here, especially a lot of different punk related decks. We're seeing a lot of different Sprite and Tier. We're also just seeing very minimal Fluanderies, just that one getting in there. We also saw 1 Marincess, 1 Dinomorphia, the Leerless Tri-Brigade, which is just essentially the new BA deck, right? That deck is just not going to die. And then they have Elf now, which is even crazier because you can bring back cards like Karis or Kit, which is really cool because then you can go ahead and keep spamming the board after that. Then also we just have decks like the Math.Mech Adagnister that we saw. We see Sprite Tier Danger. We're seeing that Rika. We're seeing Danger Tier. So many different decks this format, and I feel like the Tier and Sprite decks are going to be the best ones, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, you have to keep that Tier 1 circle really small because of the fact that Tier and Sprite are really just dominating the format right now. There are other decks that you can play, but these are definitely just by far the best decks that we have available to us. I do still like the Leary Tri deck though. I was talking about that before, and this is a deck that no matter what happens, it's still going to be able to top at some point. The Tri-Brigade engine is just so strong. We did see that 1 live twin Sprite as well. I do like Marincess a lot, and I think that no matter what event you go to, you definitely have an option to top if you are playing that, because the deck just has such a good grind game. We did see a Despia branded Invoke deck as well as a branded Eldritch deck. The Brandon engine is still trying to make its way into the format, and it's something where alone I don't really feel like it does enough, but definitely splash with other decks that can do a lot. Even playing like the branded Tier, I don't really think that's the way anymore. I think a lot more people are just playing like the Danger Tier, which I think is just the best variant, but I do really like the Sprite Danger Tier deck. I think that's really cool too. This is just something where, looking at the format objectively, you kind of have to realize what are the most popular decks being played and be able to sideboard or main deck accordingly for those worst matchups for you, because whatever's going to be like more of a free matchup, you probably shouldn't prioritize in a format where like 15 different decks are good, right? So you want to make sure that you make those concessions in your sideboard where you're like, well, I don't really lose as hard against these other decks, so I could actually make my side deck more geared toward the matchups that I'm already going to be losing because they're just a rough matchup for me, right? So that's something that you really have to just think about, at least when you're going into your sideboard. We do see 3 Math.Mech though, which is really interesting. We also have the 2 Math.Mech Adagnister. This is a deck that has definitely seen a lot of time in the game so far, and finally with Circular is starting to see more play and it's starting to see more tops, which is really cool. I think, again, it's one of those Tier 2 decks that if you pick it up right now, pretty inexpensive, and it's definitely a really nice way that you can go. A lot of hand traps, really nice end boards off of 1 card, and it's something that has a lot of longevity in the game as well. We're not really going to see it get hit on the ban list. Just another very solid deck at the moment. Now, I just want to make a quick note. If you haven't already heard about the new cards coming out in November that the tier deck is going to be using, there is a card that a lot of people are already picking up right now. It's the Neko Main King. This is a card that essentially says that once it's milled out of your deck by your opponent's card effect, it essentially becomes the end phase of your opponent's turn, which is kind of funny because all of the different Ishizu cards are going to be making it to where you mill the top 5 cards of your deck and your opponent's deck. So at that point, if you mill this card, you can go ahead and make it the end phase. This is something that may or may not see play, but it is something that a lot of people are picking up right now, and they are getting a little bit expensive. So make sure that you get yours now, just to make sure that if this does become a meta card, that you can go ahead and have your play set early on. If you do like the video today, definitely go ahead and leave a like, subscribe down below. We are on our way to 20,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much for that. If you haven't already joined my Discord, Twitch, and Twitter, or my Instagram, definitely go ahead down in the description below. Find the links to all of those. And if you want a coaching session over at Metafy, definitely be sure to go ahead, check out my page. And if you have any questions, PM me on Discord. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful day. I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you.